Okay, I'm starting this.
Okay. Well, it's just about that time. Jesus.
Oh.
They're allowed to play that.
Yeah,
we're not allowed.
we're not supposed to swear.
Yeah.
Jesus. Well, someone's ad needs to be in the swear jar.
Yeah, apparently. That wasn't an ad. That was some piece of music that I guess it's all good if it's part of the music, but not so much if you're on the air. You're definitely getting reprimanded if you use, well, any of the words we just heard in that last song right before our theme came up.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to Cinema Smackdown for Sunday, May 19th.
And given the lyrics of that song, it's like Tess is here with us this time, but she's not again.
No, she's on location in Casablanca, researching all of the locations from the new John Wick movie.
Ah.
The John Wick Dream Tour. I think it must be something like that. And with that in mind, our topic for today, wonderfully suggested by you, is because there is a new John Wick movie that has been released, we are going to discuss John Wick versus John Woo movies. Which I think an emphasis on John Woo, but we'll see what...
Well, it's a sort of an evolution of the gun fu genre.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing what you come up with, as I've done literally no research, but have my ideas on these things.
Well, I did all my research in the 90s, so I'm going to have to go on memory.
Mm-hmm. Hey, I'm going to go inside baseball on working in a radio station and point out to you that you should take a finger right now and graze the top of your microphone. Go on and do it. No, a little closer to me. Mm-hmm. Bring it around.
This is getting sexual.
It sure is. There's braille on your microphone.
Ah.
On the other side. It's over the top. I've noticed that
interestingly translates to microphone here.
Yeah, our studio is becoming more and more blind friendly, which I will have to say is a bonus for me as my eyesight is dwindling and dwindling.
I think having braille on a microphone is a bit condescending, don't you think? It's like, I think a blind person, if they held a microphone, would go, you know what? Microphone.
I don't know.
Not an ice cream cone, it's a microphone.
I cannot at this time in my life read braille. It may be a clever, sarcastic phrase of some sort. Mouth here, dummy. How about that? Would that work out for you?
Or we trick the hearing, getting my... Yeah, we're seeing. That's the sense I'm thinking of. That is the sense I'm trying to think of. Yes, we trick the seeing people into putting this on the microphone. It's an inside joke for the Braille readers.
Because we can demand anything, and they will come through. Look for your ramps in the near future, blind people. We're going to build those for you. That's not funny.
I am enjoying the seeing eye dog that's in the studio with us today. He's a good puppy.
Well, he's seeing eye dog / security. So.
Oh, is that why his teeth are around my arm?
That's right. Speaking of dogs, there's a topic for the new John Woo movie. Let's bring that up. So John Wick has
one of those W's
has always had dog themes in every film, and the new John Wick movie, John Wick, I can barely pronounce it, Parabellum. Oh, jeez. All right, let's just go there. John Wick Chapter 2, Part 2, as I like to
call it certainly is.
Here's the thing. Every John Wick movie has had something borrowed from John Woo movies, and that is gun fu. We started out with something called kung fu, which was a form of fighting, and we've dragged the phrase into other forms. So gun fu became something when people did outrageous gun stunts or could do a backflip while firing a gun. We'd call that gun fu.
Yeah, well, it was ballet of bullets is something that's also been referred to in the John Woo period. And there were certain rumblings of that leading up to it. Mm-hmm. You can tell, John Woo didn't just invent this out of nowhere. He saw stuff and said, like, what I'm thinking is maybe John Wayne in the climax of True Grit doing that weird flippin' move with the rifle that he does to reload it, which they ripped off in Terminator 2 with Schwarzenegger doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And then, of course, John Woo, like many people, probably saw the climactic shootout in Taxi Driver, which is horrible and disturbing, and said, I bet I could do this, but fun.
Yeah, exactly. So in the recent John Wick film, we see quite a bit of gun fu. There's quite a bit of knife fu, like an absurd amount of knife fu, in a way. There is There is motofu, as I actually heard Keanu Reeves describe it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he described some of the motorcycle driving as motofu, but he even said, I think we need a better name for that. There is a new genre, which I call bookfu. And bookfu is perhaps my favorite new fu of all of the fighting styles.
Well, the best thing I heard about the new John Wick film, the John Wick 3 or 2.2, 2.5, whatever, is it's a film about weapons of opportunity.
That would have been a great title.
Yeah, actually, yes, it would have been better than Parabellum. John Wick 3, Chapter 3, Weapons of Opportunity.
Yeah, there is a moment in the new movie where they literally school you on what the title means, and that scene is intolerable.
Well, yeah, it's intolerable, and every film that says, by the way, here's a scene where we explain the title to you.
Oh my god, it was the Geely of John Wick movies. Hey, it's me, the guy whose name is on the poster that you're not quite sure how to say. I'm about to say it, and correct someone else in the scene. That is what happens in Geely. Some guy says, "What's up with you, Jiggly?" And he goes, It's pronounced Geely. It's pronounced Geely.
I don't know, I still have a soft spot for the worst of all time, which features the line, "What of you? Do a kill."
Oh, but that was incomprehensible. That's not just bad. We need to try to fit this in. Okay, what do you got? Let's brainstorm. I got this. Okay, doesn't work. What else you got? Nothing? Shoot it.
Do we really have to use this title? Well, yeah, Ian Fleming came up with it for a short story once, so...
And it's fine, just don't have characters say it like it's an answer to a question. It's not an answer to a question. So I got through most of the foos for John Wick, but I didn't get to the final foo. Mm-hmm. My favorite being the book foo, but the most relevant to what we were saying about 18 minutes ago, dog foo. There is an awful lot of dog foo.
Yeah, there kind of is, yeah.
So we had brought up the Seeing Eye Dog is how we bring it all back around.
Yeah.
The studio's new on-staff Seeing Eye Dog / security.
Yeah, I don't see our Seeing Eye Dog jumping up walls and taking out bad guys.
I have faith. I've got. I believe this dog can fly.
I don't think they teach you that in Mira.
You know what? I've been privy to a few Mira sessions, and it goes a little deeper than you might think. There's definitely a.
Well, I do know a Seeing Eye Dog who flunked out of Mira. That might be why it's that stressful when they're teaching you the dog foo.
Teaching you the dog foo. So let's get into a little bit of John Woo history and how that impacted our current big fad of John Wick.
Yeah, so it all began in 1986. John Woo had a fairly long career up to that point. He directed some kung fu movies. He mostly directed like light drama, comedy type stuff. And then completely out of the blue, he decided to come up with a film called A Better Tomorrow, starring, among other action luminaries, Chow Yun-fat. And Better Tomorrow is a triad story, gangster stuff in Hong Kong. And it's not the most remarkable film of its sort, but it was a massive hit in Hong Kong. And one of the reasons it was a massive hit was because of the standout scene in it. The film itself, I would not qualify as a gun fu movie, except for one scene.
Yeah,
where you Chow Yun-fat...
It dips into it.
It dips into it, yeah, where Chow Yun-fat is... he has to go assassinate someone. And as he makes a way down a hall, kissing a girl, like he's just, I'm just casually making out with this chick, and he's hiding guns in potted plants. Mm-hmm. And when the hit starts, he pulls out 2 pistols and starts blasting away. And as he slowly makes his retreat, he gets a new gun and keeps firing. He gets a new gun and keeps firing. And it's an amazing scene. No one had seen anything quite like it at the time. And immediately, the genre was launched. Yeah. So by the time A Better Tomorrow 2 came out a year later, it was full-on gun fu stuff.
Only 1 year later?
It was only 1 year later.
Here's the thing. I'm not a huge fan of A Better Tomorrow. I don't remember it with much fondness. Literally, the only scene I remember from the film is the one you're describing.
Right.
However, A Better Tomorrow 2, which came out, as you say, a year later. Now, here's a massive spoiler. Chow Yun-fat dies in A Better Tomorrow. Actually, I do remember the scene where he dies, because Chow Yun-fat, at the end of A Better Tomorrow, is arguing with somebody or trying to give them a pep talk when he is shot in the head by surprise. And the expression on his face is, did someone just shoot me in the head? And I believe he then turns around after having a bullet exit his head in anger and frustration, like, I can't believe you shot me in the head, I'm about to, and then he dies. He has like a whole moment, though.
Well, I do remember it's one of those, get your crap together other character guy.
Yes.
And then he takes the bullet, and him getting shot and killed is actually more inspiring for that character to get his crap together than the speech.
So, when they made Better Tomorrow 2, Chow Yun-fat was emerging as a superstar. And they were like, well, we want to get him back. Even though
we can't make a sequel without Chow Yun-fat. You just can't.
So, even though his head was blown off in the first one, they say, well, we want to get the actor back. How do we explain it? And they chose literally the worst possible thing they could have chosen, which is...
And yet the results are so wonderful, you forgive it.
They just go, oh, he had a brother who looked just like him.
Yeah, well, a twin brother.
And they explain this, I don't know if you remember this, in comic book storyboard panels.
That's right, yeah.
There was this wonderful
By
man.
the way, did we mention Mark from the original film had a brother?
Well, there was this wonderful man, and he helped us complete all our goals last time. But for our new goals, lucky us, there were 2. And so Chow Yun-fat reappears in the movie out of nowhere.
And hilariously, he's in New York City.
Oh, I don't even remember.
Yeah, he's not in Hong Kong, he's in New York City. And his introduction scene, he runs a restaurant, and he's just chefing it up. And some mafioso type guys come in to try and get protection money out of him. And one of them takes a bowl of rice and throws it on the floor and says, "This rice sucks!" And Chow Yun-fat sits down and explains to him, while to them rice is nothing, but to us, rice is like family.
I do remember that.
And it climaxes with him with a gun to the guy's head, make him eat the rice off the floor. Eat the rice!
Yeah.
Eat the rice!
Oh, yeah, he even speaks English in that scene.
He does, although
it's
quite possibly not him, because so many Hong Kong films, the actors are dubbed by other people, because if you're a popular actor like Chow Yun-fat was at that time, you're shooting about 5 movies a year.
Yeah.
So there are plenty of examples where even in Chinese or Mandarin or Cantonese dubs of films, it's not the original actor because they're already on another set doing something and they're not available for ADR.
It's like the Chinese actors of that era were doing almost half as much as Japanese director Toshiki Miike does on a regular basis. I believe he directs 10 movies a year.
Well, he certainly had, I don't know if he's calmed down any.
He had a 5-movie-a-year period.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, which is, because he just broke 100.
And the fact that any of them were good.
Yeah.
And sometimes he had more than one in a year that were good, others that were just, had an idea.
Exactly.
That's what I shot this month.
All right, well, we'll be back with more thoughts on Better Tomorrow 2 after this short break from the land of reggae.
Victoria Weekend goes
I should have said
live.
message
Club
instead
Soda
of break,
on
but
Sunday
whatever.
midnight with a taste of reggae. One amazing concert.
It's not long. My commercial is only 19 seconds, the one after this, so it's only going to be 50 seconds altogether.
Okay.
7 p.m. Performing will be Meta and the Cornerstones alongside Ilem and Ines Esso. This is a show you will not want to miss. So,
It's always nice to go into brain lock at the top of a show.
You find that reggae?
No, me with the braille thing. It's like, what sense is that?
what
I'm going to actually introduce us now because we didn't do it before.
Sure.
Tune in to Nose and Around Fridays from 2 to 3 p.m. on CJLO.
Well, that was an unexpected Keanu Reeves shout-out right at the end of
Yeah,
that ad.
appropriate enough.
Excellent.
Now, if only Alex Winters will do a Gun Fu movie.
I think it's only a matter of time. So, welcome back to Cinema Smackdown. I am Michael Brody. I am joined today by Shane Simmons, and we are discussing the films of John Woo versus the films of John Wick.
One's a real person.
And one is John Woo. The oldest joke in the world.
Well, is John Woo still a real person after his American career?
I like the first 3 movies of his American career quite a bit.
Yeah, having
decided we would not talk about his American movies.
No,
Let's talk about his American movies.
Yeah, I don't want to get into it too much. I'll just say, I love his Hong Kong career, and I'd seen all his Hong Kong films before he started making movies in America, whereas a lot of people were introduced to him by his American films and went back.
Well, look.
So the American films could be nothing but disappointments.
I can say this in about 10 seconds. I really enjoyed Hard Target when I saw it in the cinema because for a Van Damme movie, it was extraordinary, and it had a lot of good moments in it. It's not a great film, but it has a lot of good moments in it. That was a John Woo movie. It was a surprise that he would do that one. But then he did... I don't remember the order, but I'm going to say...
Was it Broken Arrow next, I think?
I don't know if it was...
I think it was.
Well, he did Broken Arrow, which I love as a film, but I love it because it's a pretty traditional action American movie with some really weird Asian stuff in it. Some of the tone, some of the characters in the movie recognize when each other are within the vicinity of each other by a sense. That is not an American sensibility. There are scenes in that movie where one character is walking and just stops like, wait, I sense that my enemy is near. That happens 3 times in the film, and it's phenomenal.
Because he has spidey sense.
Yep, there's definitely a we are bonded by something larger than our hate for each other thing in the film. So I really like Broken Arrow, and I even kind of like the absolute mess that is Face Off.
It is mess is a good word.
I mean, it's the Michael Bay of John Woo films. It's so much.
Yeah.
And the thing is, at its heart, it has 2 impossible performances by each of the leads.
By 2 of the craziest guys in Hollywood.
Yeah, but both of them give 2 crazy performances.
They do indeed. As each other.
Yeah.
As well.
And it's just kind of wonderful. And
we're talking about John Travolta and Nicolas Cage, in case you don't know.
I only wish that they hadn't used any voice change stuff for them and had simply had each actor really do an impersonation of each other, so that whenever Nicolas Cage's face was on John Travolta, it was still John Travolta's voice coming out of his mouth, but trying to pretend it was Nicolas Cage. That would have been 100 times better, and vice versa. He could have just done a lot of Mr. Carter lines on the side.
I will pay good money now to hear John Travolta scream, "Not the bees!"
So, at any rate, we were talking about A Better Tomorrow 2, and we weren't quite done as far as I'm concerned, because that is the movie that verges so hard into absolute exploitation.
It does.
The violence in that movie is so over the top, so delightfully... I mean, there's a scene where 2 guys... No, not really a spoiler, we're not going to say who anybody is, but 2 guys are back to back, and they both have guns, and they spin around and just unload their guns on each other into each other's
At point-blank range, yeah.
At point-blank range. Fall down,
start to collapse, and then do it again,
and then start to collapse again. And it's only like how many bullets can you take and still be the guy shooting?
Now I remember when True Romance came out. At one point,
there's a clip.
Christian Slater goes to a movie, and that they're showing that movie, and I remember the reaction in the crowd. Everyone, there was this moment where everyone going, "Wow. What movie is that, and can we watch that instead right now instead of this film?"
Yeah, I hear you. It's actually on a TV set, not in the cinema.
The cinema was. Oh, yes, that's right. It was Street Fighter in the cinema.
Multiple Street Fighter movies shown in
the
wrong order.
Right.
Even though they're saying they're shown in. Anyway, when you know your Street Fighter movies, you realize the films are.
Yeah, I forgot how much time they spend watching better exploitation movies. I like True Romance, but
I'm not a big fan.
But you show people some random scenes from Street Fighter and Better Tomorrow 2, and they kind of go, "Yeah, I need to be seeing that right now."
So, we were on about Better Tomorrow 2, and they really, as much as they invented the genre in A Better Tomorrow, they cemented it in Better Tomorrow 2.
Yes, absolutely.
They showed you how far a movie like this could go with magic gunfights, just stuff that goes so far. Character building gunfights, superhero.
Yeah, the climactic gunfight of Better Tomorrow 2 is, even though technically I guess he topped it in some of his subsequent films, but that climactic gunfight is among the best that John Woo has ever shot, that anyone has ever shot.
And as it goes, of course, these movies were made in the late 80s, and there's no CGI.
Yes,
they
refreshing.
Unbelievable. They also, while watching them, you cannot imagine there's a possibility that stuntmen weren't killed making this.
Yes.
Because just the gun flashes in people's faces is extreme. I don't see the Hong Kong film system of the time having necessarily the best safety measures in place.
Well, I to that end, I have to mention one other John Woo film that actually came out between A Better Tomorrow and A Better Tomorrow 2. Even though he shot it a couple of years before A Better Tomorrow. He shot a film, sort of a mercenary adventure film in Thailand, called Heroes Shed No Tears.
Right.
And after the huge hit of A Better Tomorrow, they said, "Oh, we have this other John Woo action film on our shelf. Let's just throw it in there." So it came out for about a week in Hong Kong, which is pretty, given the mill that Hong Kong was back in the day, that was a decent run for a film. But it was a quick cash grab, and the film itself is sort of this mercenary adventure that's a bit of a rip-off of the Lone Wolf and Cub series. But reading up on it, I have to say, so it was shot in Thailand, and John Woo remarked that, the Thai stuntmen, who he had nothing but praise for, they did crazy stuff that even the Hong Kong stuntmen wouldn't do. And among these things was, because it was cheaper than squibs, when they needed bullet hits around the actors, they just got sharpshooters, firing live ammo.
Oh, wow, I had no idea.
Yeah, so when the grass moves because the bullet hit it, it's because the bullet hit it. And, in fact, one of the actors got hit by a ricochet in the chest and suffered a fairly significant wound.
That's more than a little insane.
It is a crazy film, and I will also mention that with the John Wick films, I wanted to look up what the body count of those films was, because it does seem extraordinary. He shoots a lot of people in all three films, and stab, and I was surprised that the first film only has officially a body count of 77. Seems low to me. And the second one, which was even more extreme, has a body count of 128. By comparison, Hero Shed No Tears has a body count, and this is an 84-minute movie, and has a body count of 323.
Wow, that's impressive. By the way, I needed to look this up to remind myself of because this movie is called Heroes Shed No Tears, is the American translation of probably a pretty accurate translation of the title, whereas A Better Tomorrow, which is the English translation of the Chinese title, the literal translation of the Chinese title is True Colors of a Hero. That is the real title of Better Tomorrow. And the movie I think we're going to talk about next, which is The Killer. The Killer.
Let me guess. I think I remember this. A pair of blood-splattered heroes.
Well, the one I see here, you're pretty close. It's Bloodshed of Two Heroes.
Okay.
Now, let's be clear. I've seen the movie The Killer. There's arguably not one hero in that film.
I don't know.
Maybe one. It's not two heroes.
They're darkly heroic.
Oof. You're really stretching the boundaries of what can be described as a hero, but sure. But yeah, we're all about blood and heroes in every single.
So John Wick as a hitman is a hero, but Chow Yun-fat as a hitman in The Killer is not a hero.
Have you heard me arguing that John Wick is a hero?
Well, okay, he's a mass murdering psychopath.
He's a mass murdering psychopath.
But he likes puppies.
By the time you get to the third film, his justification for doing things is like, I kind of want to live, therefore hundreds must die.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to say his motivation in the third one was a bit odd for me.
I have to say there's...
I just want to stay alive so I can keep remembering my wife.
I have to say, myself, one of the things about the John Wick thing is that he's progressively in more and more trouble as each film goes on. But I would have really liked to see in the second, or even the third movie, where he just has a moment of contemplation of, wait, do I even want to live? He doesn't have that moment. We don't get that moment of, do I even really need to keep being here? Because he kind of wasn't going to in the first film. I think there's like an element of, maybe I'll just kill myself.
Not really.
No?
He's sort of like just this, I am, and therefore I'm a force of nature, and I'm just going to keep going. And his wife, his late wife was like, here, have a puppy. You need something to love, because otherwise you're insufferable.
Yeah. So, where were we? We were getting into The Killer.
The Killer. Now, The Killer, that was my entry point for John Woo. This came out in 1989, and it was released here, theatrically, very briefly, for maybe about 2 weeks in 1990. And the impetus for me going to this was a review in the Gazette. I don't know if you remember critic John Griffin. I don't even know if he's still there and still milling out reviews. Mm-hmm. But the joke between myself and my movie-going friends was he was a pretentious arse. So we read a review that he wrote about The Killer. And his review, to paraphrase slightly, was, "Oh my God, it's amazing, it's so violent." And it's like, wait, John Griffin said that about this movie? Maybe we should check it out. So my friend Mike and I went down to the basement of the now defunct Palace, and we sat down with about a dozen Chinese people in an otherwise vacant theater, and we watched The Killer. And I walked out of that movie, this was back in the VHS days, pre-DVD, and I said, I will pay $100 for a copy of that film if it's gettable.
Right.
And eventually,
show people.
Just to show people.
Yeah.
Eventually it was gettable. Came out on VHS. Grabbed a copy. Luckily it was only about $20. Brought it over to a friend's place where there happened to be a crowd of people. Said, we have to watch this movie immediately. And their reaction initially was, what is this piece of crap? Because it's like, oh, some foreign film with a bunch of Chinese guys, and I don't get it, blah, blah, blah. Seems a low budget next to some of the American films. And then the first major action scene happened. And they started to shut up and pay attention. And by the end of it, they're like, oh my god, that was amazing.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't start off very promising if you just have no expectations.
Yeah, if you don't know what you're about to sit through.
Once you understand the setups of these films and how you have to establish the, say, decency or moral dilemmas of characters before any major sequence, yeah.
Yeah, the moral dilemma of this is Chow Yun-fat plays a hitman who accidentally blinds a lounge singer during one of his jobs. And muzzle flash, so there's no major damage, but she is losing her eyesight because of this gun that went off near her face. And he is tormented by guilt about this, and starts to become her benefactor and friend, and agrees to take on one more hit. That was supposed to be his last hit. No, he's going to do one more hit so he can pay for the operation to try and restore her vision. And meanwhile, there's a cop played by Danny Lee, who is sort of his opposite on the coin, but a kindred spirit. He's sort of the maverick cop on the edge type of guy who is quite capable of his own gun fu feats of miracles. And he's pursuing this guy, and the more he pursues him, the more he realizes, yeah, we're so close to each other spiritually. We are the same type of man. It's just I represent the law, and he represents criminality. And eventually, when they do confront each other, it goes from animosity to bonding like you've never seen two guys bond before. And as they face swarms of bad guys, just every location they go to, a billion guys run at them, and they gun them all down. And then they go to another location, and then the entire population of planet Earth runs at them, and they gun them all down.
And I believe as they gun each one of them down, they are reincarnated as a dove.
Well, yes.
A moment of death.
John Woo does love his doves in the films, to the point where it becomes comedy when they show up.
Well, especially by the time he got to his American career of directing Mission Impossible 2, and Tom Cruise is running through flocks of doves.
Yeah, the doves in Face Off also elicited laughter from me.
It was a bit much at that point. It was kind of like the J.J. Abrams glare.
Yeah, the lens flares. It was one of those signatures that is like, oh,
you need to hold back on that, sir.
Yeah.
It has been often pointed out to me as signatures go. Every Steven Spielberg movie.
Yeah, The Shooting Star.
Actually, I don't know about that one.
Oh, okay.
The Spielberg one, that's the constant trademark of a Spielberg film. There's always a father that abandoned the family.
There's that, yeah.
Every single thing.
A lot of the early ones also have the Shooting Star. That was it.
Well, it was certainly in Temple of Doom. I remember that scene
where
they're looking at the fakest sky you've ever seen.
Well,
star flies
I think the origin of that was when they're shooting out on the water for Jaws. They captured a shooting star by accident, and Spielberg said, "That's cool. I want to keep putting it in movies."
Well, it's the same way that while they were shooting Jaws, a dinosaur wandered by and growled, and he said, "We got to put that in a shark's roar."
Yeah.
Which led to Jurassic Park being populated with nothing but real dinosaurs. Because he discovered an island with real dinosaurs. I'm just guessing at this point, but I'm pretty sure that's what happened.
Yeah, well, CGI was nowhere near advanced at that in '94 to do that. No, it had to be real.
So that was The Killer. The Killer was the big breakthrough film for everybody, and the influence is just where the American movie started stealing it at that point. You're beginning...
It started, there was this period where, in the 90s in particular, where a lot of American action movies were just stealing bits from Hong Kong cinema in general. John Woo was one of the people being cribbed from. Jackie Chan was another major one. Certainly, if you've ever seen Tango and Cash, there's stuff lifted from Jackie Chan's police story shot for shot.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the wink-wink homage of Jackie and I know each other.
A little
so
bit.
He's kind of going to be okay with
Yeah,
this.
we know each other, so the plagiarism will be not legally actionable.
As much so. Just to remind our listeners, they're listening to CJLO 1690. This show is called Cinema Smackdown, and today we are discussing the films of John Woo with a smattering of John Wick thrown in just for comparison. So, after The Killer, John Woo, I mean, I know he did a few other things, but I wanted to just quickly mention one because there's a tiny piece of trivia that popped into my head. I know that right before his he was gonna come to America and start making movies. He'd been basically given an offer to do so, and he decided to make, I mean, I know there's 2 or 3 more of these, but he did decide to make a swan song movie in Hong Kong, and that was a film that's now well known as Hard Boiled, although I know I'm skipping off.
Yeah, or as I refer to it, his American resume film.
Yeah, exactly. And so I just wanted to briefly mention that Hard Boiled is way over the top in the gun fu. I mean, it is. So there's so many.
Well, the entire back hour of the film is basically one extended action scene.
Yeah. But the reason I wanted to bring it up at all is because Hard Boiled is another one that had a different title, and the Chinese title is the best of all the titles. The literal English translation of the real Chinese title is The Hot-Handed God of Cops. And that is, come on.
I think that's the best title they could have gone with.
Yeah.
I like that better than Hard Boiled.
Yeah. So, but before we talk anything about that, there was 1 or 2 more, of course.
Yeah, there was 3 between The Killer and that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's in 3 years.
Yeah, he, Hong Kong.
By 93, he was in America.
Hong Kong in those good old days was a mill. And I should mention that John Woo, there was a massive migration of Hong Kong stars and talent, directors, everybody in the 90s because they all want to get out of there before the Chinese mainland takeover of Hong Kong in 1997.
Yeah, an awful lot of them bought property in
Vancouver.
In Vancouver.
Yeah. Now, John Woo was probably the first one to get out, and that was because he had always been quite militantly anti-communist, and he was really worried about where the future of his career was going to be.
Of course.
So whereas others hung around, I always point to 1993 as being probably the absolute pinnacle of that period of Hong Kong cinema. And by then, John Woo was already gone.
Right.
Everyone else was still in town, still making movies. But after 1993, 1994, it dried up very quickly.
Yeah, it's amazing. There is not a lot of phenomenal film from that era that we look back on.
Yeah, and yet 93, 94, there's amazing stuff. And after that, you can barely find anything that's much worth a damn.
Very true. So let's just quickly touch on the titles of the Woo films.
Yeah, okay, so after The Killer, he did, same year as The Killer, in fact, did a film called Just Heroes, which he actually co-directed.
Which is a charity movie.
It's a charity film. This is a weird phenomenon that happens in Hong Kong, and Hong Kong alone, I believe, where they make a film specifically where the proceeds will go to a charity, or in this case, I believe it was Chang Che, the old Shaw Brothers director, who was old and broke, and everyone who was anyone in Hong Kong sort of came together to make this film, and the money went to him because they respected him so much.
It was like his retirement money.
Yeah, it was He took and he went and he made another film with it,
which gave everyone even more respect.
Yeah, they all respected him even more for that. So,
yeah, which is kind of amazing.
Yeah. Definitely, if you're a John Woo fan, worth checking out because all the action scenes, signature John Woo type stuff.
Yeah. However, other than that, not
and if you want to see Stephen Chow in a serious role, he's in this as well.
The comedian, mostly known as comedian actor from God of Gamblers sequels.
Yeah, Kung Fu Hustle, Shaolin Soccer. Yeah.
That guy. Yeah. And actually, my favorite Stephen Chow movie is not a big or important movie, but I really enjoyed a film he made called Love on Delivery, in which he learns kung fu from a guy who's completely demented, and then learns a completely demented form of kung fu, and then goes out at night in a Garfield mask, fighting bad guys, and the majority of the movie is him fighting people in a Garfield mask, which is awful, and yet it's a wonderful, stupid movie.
I also recommend his film God of Cookery, which is cooking foo.
Cook foo, food foo.
Yeah, food, yeah.
Yeah.
After that, there was what I consider to be his absolute masterpiece, which is Bullet in the Head.
His nihilistic.
Oh, it is nihilistic. Like, I mean, many of his films do not.
Craig Zoller.
Most of his films don't have a very happy ending. They're filled with tragedy. They have often been called operatic.
Yeah.
Bullet in the Head takes that to the nth degree. It's about three young guys from Hong Kong who, during the Vietnam War, decide to make a quick buck by smuggling some drugs into this war zone. They show up on the first day. Their stash is destroyed in a bombing. They are nearly shot as Viet Cong. They have to save themselves by, declaring as quickly and as profusely as they could that they are Hong Kong people. And from there, their trip just gets worse and worse and worse, leading to tragedy upon tragedy and fantastic climax. There's actually 2 alternate endings to this film.
Well,
I recommend looking up both because they're kind of interesting.
There's a really dark ending, and then there's the
car chase ending,
face-off ending, where it's like the movie just will not end. It just keeps going. You know what the end result has to be, and yet the film won't stop. It's like, as you've said before about other directors, stop giving him money. He's just going to keep shooting scenes.
Yeah, well, the end of Bullet in the Head, it comes down to a settling of affairs between former friends, and one has to kill the other. And there's a scene where that happens a very plot way, and then there's another version where it happens in a over-the-top action way, with what can only be described as a car duel.
Yeah, car food.
Yeah, car food. Yeah,
some car food. Anyway, yes, a Bullet in the Head is the most satisfying on a narrative level in terms of, wow, that was an emotional journey, and it had some of that John Woo stuff in it.
Yeah,
but it's a dark film. If fans of Dragged Across Concrete will certainly enjoy A Bullet in the Head. Or
if you saw some of the darker moments of Deer Hunter and said, I wish I was more of an action film.
That's a good point. It is. There's a lot in common.
Yeah. And then finally, just before Hard Boiled, he made the ultra light comedy caper, yet with gun fu movie, Once a Thief,
which is the closest Giant Fat has come to making a full-on Cary Grant movie.
Well, he's always been referred to as Cary Grant with guns.
Yeah.
He certainly has his fair share of lighter comedy type stuff.
I like about 80% of the movie Once a Thief, and then there's some bits that verge right into slapstick that kind of take me out.
It is a very mixed bag. However, the post-credit sequence with him being a nanny to a baby, it doesn't fit with anything else in the film, but it is amazing to watch.
I think that's where it loses me a little. But I mean, you're not wrong. It is interesting that they could end a movie like that. But there's if it's worth mentioning, of course, that Once a Thief spawned a Canadian television series that Wu directed the pilot of.
Right.
With 3 Canadian 2 guys and a girl having really mediocre adventures over the course of, I think, several seasons. And it's real trash television. It all came from this fairly unknown Hong Kong movie. I mean, in North America, that is.
Yeah, I mean, it's not one of John Woo's A-list.
Yeah, that's just
productions.
It's a very strange transition to get to that.
Again, if you're in the mood for a light, almost Hudson Hawk-esque caper film.
And when am I not?
With which occasionally blows up into extreme action scenes, and surely one of the most amazing car chases I've seen in a film. That's high up on my list of wow, that was an amazing scene. And they're flipping cars on things that should be heritage sites that make me worry. Is like I think you're chipping the ancient concrete there.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So yeah, that was that, and we do get to Hard Boiled, which is the love letter to gun fu, the kind of the ultimate one of these movies. That is definitely the movie I watched where I said, I would like to know how many stuntmen died making this movie. Because it really, there are scenes where characters are in the middle of a gunfight, they leap inside of the back seat of a car through 2 open doors. He leaps into the car. Someone throws a grenade into the back seat where that character is, and you see the actor jumping out of a literal exploding car. And you watch that moment and you say, well, this is pre-CGI. That is definitely a real exploding car with a real human being coming out of it. How many takes did the guy not get out? How many stuntmen did they burn through trying to get that shot just right?
Hong Kong stunts in general are just bone-breaking. They make you cringe to watch them. I remember in The Killer, in particular, during the climactic church shootout, there's one minion extra guy who just goes flying through the air, and he lands on a pew. And being conditioned by American action films, you think, oh yeah, it's a breakaway balsa wood pew, and it's going to shatter. No, it's solid wood. And he lands on it on the side and bounces off. And I still feel that to this day.
Yeah, my back hurts a little just having seen it once. I agree with you there. It is kind of amazing how violent that film is, and it is Hardboiled's a pretty compelling, dramatic cop story of the undercover cop having to deal with something while the rule-following cop, blah, blah, blah. But it has
I refer to it as his American resume film, though, because it ultimately has a happy resolution compared to the tragedy of most of his other films, which is why I prefer The Killer, because The Killer has one of those films that has tragedy upon tragedy.
It's much more classic.
To the point where the end is so unbelievably tragic, it just puts a smile on my face every time.
Well, how do we put it with The Killer? Not The Killer, with Hardboiled. The one thing that is worth mentioning with Hardboiled is there is a 8 to 10 minute unbroken take in this movie where 2 characters walk down a hallway and do gunfight after gunfight after gunfight in real time with no cuts, so you know everything you're seeing is a setup that has all been done ahead of time. Like the most astonishing on-camera fight you've ever seen. They reach the end of a hallway, get on an elevator, have an entire conversation, get off the elevator.
Here's the thing, because the thing is, it's a set, so the elevator doesn't go anywhere.
Right.
So while they're in the elevator having a conversation, the rest of the crew descends on the set outside that has just been destroyed and littered with bodies and holes, and they completely they reset it all. They basically create a whole new set, and then they come out and they start blasting again.
And it is a movie miracle.
Yeah.
It is a miracle. It took weeks and weeks to film properly. I think they had dozens of false starts on it, but the end result is maybe the 10 best minutes ever shot.
It's up there with the Tom Yum Goong, the spiraling staircase
which was 20
fight.
Years later.
Yeah,
More than 20 years later. But yes, any attempt to duplicate something like this, just at least you get my hat, buddy. I'm a tip of the hat to you, no question.
But yeah, when you have say your typical Hollywood director saying, "Hey, I'm going to do a long take shot," and it's a lot of people talking to each other, and you just a lot of camera movement. It's like, no, unless you're destroying the set and setting off squibs everywhere.
Yeah.
Don't even talk to me, because I've seen better.
All right. Well, speaking of seeing better, let's do a quick ad break.
Do you like attending free events? How about free concerts?
Do I?
Film screenings?
Do I?
CJLO's magazine team is always looking for contributors to cover rad events.
Not bad,
all
not
over
bad.
the city.
I think we should probably get to John Wick.
Yeah, we should talk actually a little bit about John Wick.
CJLO.com and check out our magazine.
We'll have about 13 minutes altogether.
Yeah, that's fine.
I have kind of a John Wick introduction. I'll see if I can figure out how to say it right.
Sure.
Just to get us into it.
Hi, and welcome to the show tonight. Tonight we
25
have
seconds.
Best new music.
Right now, let's check out the changes in this week's
Not time enough for me to pop home and
Top 30.
get some stuff done, come back.
You do your thing, Barry Allen.
And credits. Counting down the best new artists played at the station. Every Friday at noon, only on CJLO 6090 AM.
Welcome back to Cinema Smackdown. I'm Michael Brody, this is Shane Simmons. We are discussing John Woo movies versus John Wick movies. We've done about 40 minutes of John Woo.
We've done all the important John Woo films.
Everything.
And now we can say Yes, and this echoed down into many, many Hollywood ripoffs that didn't do it well.
Right. I don't even know if I'd call the John Wick movies doing it well, but I will say they certainly are influenced.
They're influenced, and yet, the style of action in John Wick, credit where credit due, is not the same as...
It's not identical.
No, not at all. The approach to the gun choreography and how John Wick shoots his opponents and deals with them is quite different than the twin pistol packing days of Chow Gun Fat.
Which are very elegant. The elegance isn't really happening in the John Wick films.
Yeah.
They're down and dirty to a kind of an extreme.
And there's a certain efficiency, a ruthless efficiency to it. He's Mr. Headshot.
So
he's not, I'll go to shoot a guy 10 times in the chest, and my bullet never runs out of, or my gun never runs out of bullets unless it's more exciting that way.
Right.
That's sort of the John Woo
club
way.
him with the...
But I am pleased that finally an American-style gun fu film has come up with something original, as opposed to the years that we had of people saying, well, we'll just give 2 pistols in the hands of whatever C-grade Hollywood actor, and it'll be like a John Woo film, because he'll shoot some bullets. And
very true.
he has 2 guns.
So, the one thing, I wanted to mention this about John Wick, 2 things. One, I've read an interview with the creators where they say that there were 4 influences on John Wick from cinema specifically. The first is the Sergio Leone movies, specifically The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which they have a whole sequence in the new film which is very close to a scene from that, where he is examining gun parts to build a better gun.
That's true.
Homage.
That's true.
There is also the Lee Marvin, John Borman movie Point Blank, which they point to, which a lot of people point to as a genesis of the assassin or criminal genre and being a cool movie at the same time. There is, of course, John Woo's The Killer, which is one of the bigger influences on John Wick. And finally, a movie I have yet to see called The Red Circle, or Le Cercle Rouge, one of the Melville films starring Alain Delon. But I'm inspired...
See, I thought they were going to say Le Samurai, which is another one.
I've seen The Samurai. The Samurai is... What's the word? Oh, jeez, I can barely pronounce words sometimes. Contemplative.
Mm-hmm.
It is a calm contemplation of the tone of being a hired gun.
Right.
Whereas I haven't seen The Red Circle, so I'm curious to find out. I mean, some of the Red Circle, as I understand it, is a film about 3 men who come together to do a job, and it is listed in several places as being the coolest movie ever made because the 3 lead characters have no emotions. They show nothing. They just go do their thing as coldly as possible, which could be very interesting. I'm curious to see it. So it'll be I'll be getting to that one in the near future.
Well, certainly John Wick is not Mr. Warmth.
No. So let's talk about the first John Wick movie. There's one thing I want to mention about it, which it gets lost in the sequel hustle. The first half hour of the first John Wick movie takes place in reality. It takes place in the real world.
And this is what threw me the first time I watched it.
It takes place in the real world where a normal-ish guy is seen dealing with loss.
Yeah, he's grieving his wife who died of cancer. She gifts him a puppy from beyond the grave.
I see the inklings that he might have been a former badass and that he's kind of trying to live a life of calm.
Yeah, he's a retired criminal of some sort.
Yeah, but he almost comes off as not having those skills anymore. Everything's gentle. And then when the movie kicks into the crime genre, it does a 180. It goes from this kind of normal world to, all of a sudden, it's Sin City. It is Frank Miller's Sin City. It is, you are dropped in head first.
There is this cartoon criminal underworld that exists.
Everybody is an arch criminal. There's no law. Everyone is a master maniac murderer.
And there is this bizarro infrastructure.
And they drop all that on you very suddenly. Now, the thing was, when I saw the original John Wick movie in the cinema, that was actually the selling point for me, was I love how this just became another movie. Admittedly, I kind of wanted to watch the calm reality version of the film, but I just decided, well, this is what they're giving me, I'm going to go with it. And the subsequent...
Because we get as far as the first action scene.
Yes.
Where
his very real world.
His house is invaded, and he deals with it. Mm-hmm. As it's like, oh yeah, I get it. You're a trained killer. You're good at this. It's a lot of point blanking people in the head with a gun. And then he calls a cleanup crew. And this is the first inkling we get that there's this weird structure that's going to be under the surface. Real criminality is sort of like that. If you get a glimpse beyond the veil of regular life versus the mafioso underworld, it has that sort of feel to it. But this is like Looney Tune cartoon version of that.
Right. Well, I really like the first John Wick movie. It has a few problems for me. I don't like the fact that John Wick is talked about throughout the movie as an unstoppable force of absolute death, and yet there's about 5 scenes in that movie where you're like, he's just some guy. There's moments in it where you go, wow, they're really just pointing out that he doesn't have a great plan, and that if something went slightly to the left or slightly right, he'd be dead now. There's just no... He gets captured at a certain point, and you figure, well, this is the moment where we're going to see him be such an ingenious action hero that he'll get out of it. And he doesn't get out of it. He gets rescued. And I thought, that seems to be a cardinal sin in a movie like this. Do not show me this guy being about to be killed and rescued by a secondary character.
Yeah, for someone who's such a legendary angel of death, people do get to drop on him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's totally wrong, but if he's tied to a chair, I want to see him escape that chair and murder everybody with the chair, not have some sniper drop in and drop bodies. It's like, that didn't work for me. However, I still do really like the film. It's a small criticism. And by the time we got around to a sequel to John Wick, I doubted they could make a film I'd want to see. So for my own self, when I saw the second movie, I was delighted by the deep dive into that Sin City-style criminal underworld, John Wick being tasked with a minor but pretty impossible task to survive. Go do this favor you owe me, and somehow keep living your life after. And I actually think the level of assassin characters in the second one, the rhythm of the movie, I think it's for my own sake, I know you don't agree as much, I think it's a nearly perfect film as a John Wick universe movie. I think it just works. I don't think it necessarily has the right ending. It is a good ending. It is an obvious ending. I'm screwed, I guess I better get my act together and get the hell out of here ending. But, I quite liked it.
I mean, we discussed various ways it could have gone. There could have been a more solid ending with that film. Instead, it ends on a cliffhanger where, oh, well, if you thought he was screwed before, he's even more screwed now.
And that's great. And in fact, they do fantastic things with that.
He's so screwed. Movie. Yeah, he's so screwed at the end of the second movie that they have to begin the third movie literally about 5 minutes after the end of the second one.
Within the hour.
Yeah, he's on the run, and he has a very limited amount of time to try to
resolve
any problem, or just set himself up so he's not instantly dead the moment this contract on his head becomes active.
And I was very satisfied with that concept, and if only we had stuck a little bit more with it, I would have watched an entire 2-hour movie of just that in real time, had that been offered to us. But I still do like the movie they made. I do like the third John Wick film. I don't love it. I feel like all of the John Wick movies were one tiny polish script-wise away from being great films, because John Wick does not have a lot of great lines.
Yeah, I have said repeatedly, it's like, yeah, all the elements are there, they just need a writer.
They just need somebody to drop great one-line, and I don't mean one-liners, I don't want Schwarzenegger lines. I just want better lines than his little comments about, well, I guess I have to kill you now. And they're so not great. You just want
there's
that Shane Black moment after 35 minutes of no dialogue.
As I said when I saw the second film, trying to catch up, I actually saw a version without subtitles. So there's a few moments where people are speaking a foreign language, and there's some moments with sign language. And without exception, I did find a better copy later just so I could check up on those scenes. And without exceptions, the lines I imagined were being said were better than what was actually said in the film.
And it's odd to me because, let's be clear, it is a hell of a lot harder to do a 6 months worth of choreography of gunfights than it is to sit in a room with a blank piece of paper and write something interesting for the character to say at the end of an 18-hour grueling gunfight day of shooting.
Mm-hmm,
So I'm always amazed that much work could go into something and they don't think, what line of dialogue will really satisfy the audience in this moment, rather than there's literally a moment in the new movie where somebody reaches for a gun in front of John Wick and John goes, "Don't do it." Like, that's it? That's what you've got? I wanted John Wick to go, in that moment where a character is trying to decide between, do we turn this into a gunfight or do we walk away? I wanted John Wick to go, "Yeah, I'm 100% on your side." And he doesn't. He literally says, "I don't think that's a good idea." And you're like, don't give me hesitation. There's also a moment near the end of the movie where John Wick's one line of dialogue is, "Wait, I don't think that's..." And you're like, no, I want you to say something solid.
Well, this is why the appearance of Mark Dacascos as a villain in the third one is so refreshing, because he's so much more engaging than most of the other characters in the film, and has things to say that are actually a little bit amusing.
He is quite delightful in this, and I'm really happy that he has somehow managed to land that role after a 22-year gap. I'm not saying he did no work, but he did a 22-year gap between his great movie and this movie. His last great movie was 95, I think.
About that, yeah.
So that was called Drive. A little shout-out to a movie called Drive starring Mark Dacascos and Kadeem Hardison, which is a phenomenal little movie.
And from the good period of the brief career of Brittany Murphy.
Yeah, maybe her best work.
Yeah,
other than Freeway.
Freeway,
That's her two
yes.
films made within a year or so.
If you like Brittany Murphy at all, you have to see Drive and Freeway. She's amazing in those films, and you will lament her passing.
Yeah. It is quite amazing. But,
I also do want to shout out Mark Dacascos for Brotherhood of the Wolf. That's also another interesting film of his. But, yeah, there was a lot of gap of not much.
Well, he also went on to do a different kind of career. He is the chairman on Iron Chef, the American version.
The American version, yeah.
So we're about out of time. I have been Michael Brody. I've been joined by Shane Simmons. We have talked a lot about John Woo. We have touched a little bit
We'll continue talking about it when we're off the air for another 3 hours, probably.
Yeah. Join us outside if you want to catch up and join the conversation yourself. We've touched a little bit on the 3 John Wick movies without getting too in-depth. Perhaps we'll talk more about them in the future, as there is no doubt going to be a 4th film, as this film
certainly
pretty big. At any rate, our show...
not to mention a TV show and other side projects.
We'll see when and if that actually comes to pass. Our show today has been Cinema Smackdown. I have enjoyed this lively, pretty improvised chat, as it were, about things.
Going on 20 to 30-year-old memories.
That's right. Yeah. It is amazing that we've gone that far. Thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
90 a.m. in Montreal.
Hey.
Oh, you made it.
Yeah. I hope the loud music wasn't... Did you guys hear what's going on?
No worries.
A little bit, but not much.
As long as you're not literally drumming in the next room, I don't think there's nearly a big problem with it.
Yeah, he came in and he was like, "I have the studio today, like from 2 to 6." And I'm like, "No, man, check the schedule. What are you doing? You guys just yeah.
Oh, sorry, were you guys playing?
They were just tuning and stuff like that. They're doing a live performance. Yeah, for sure.
Congrats.
Yeah.
Fun with that.
Yeah, thank you so much.